So we're talking fantasy. Oh, and by the way, before we get stuck into this, follow us over at Ball Boys NBA for all immediate reactions. As soon as Jamal Murray got injured, I tweeted out what I thought, who I thought the pickups were, who I thought were the biggest values. So if you don't want to have to wait for our weekly podcast to get that information, follow us over on Twitter. That's at Ball Boys NBA again. And we'll be tweeting out most days if relevant things are happening, and especially during the fantasy playoffs. So before we get stuck into the streaming section of today's pod, I want to chat to you because you're on your bye week right now. You finished top of the league, number 1 seed. You've been blessed with a week off to prepare yourself. You're sitting back. What is your advice to everyone else who's in a similar position where they've had a week off? They're the 1 or 2 seed. They're waiting to see who their matchup's going to be. What advice would you have for people out there to get yourself ready before the playoffs start?
That's a good question. I kick my feet up first and foremost. Be proud of myself for such a successful season thus far.
Pat yourself on the back.
That's it. Start positive. And I'll be looking at the 2, I guess, contenders you would verse in the next round.
Yep.
You've got a bit of extra time on them because they're obviously pretty locked into obviously winning this week to make it to the semis. You have time to have a look at both their teams. There's no need for you to really pick up players right now, but you could have a look at their strengths compared to your team, just for both of them, see if there's any similarities, if there's something you can focus on. And maybe even based off that, you can obviously use your pickups and your ads for this week and build that into the next week, which I think is definitely a big bonus. Especially, we're going to talk about it next. Some of the back-to-backs. If there's early ones, say on the Monday and Tuesday, you could pick that player up obviously this week and then obviously get those cash into that now, drop him on like say the Wednesday or the Thursday, whatever it is, mid next week, and you still have 4 ads at your disposal. So that could play into it. That can strengthen your team 100%. So those would be the 2 probably biggest positives, I'd say. For those of you that have a similar case like me and drafted a killing team.
Take that victory lap. Well done to you. But the work doesn't stop there. But I like what you're talking about. Making sure you're staying on top of watching how the matchups are playing out in your potential opponent and their strengths and weaknesses. If you see one of the teams clearly getting ahead of that other team, you can maybe start to sort of draft on what stats you're going to be close with that team. If there's any similarities, say, with both opponents, you're close in them with, let's say it's blocks or whatever, you can start to look at who's going to be a good block streamer, maybe even pick up someone like I know he's probably not going to be much of a streamer anymore, but you pick up someone like a Goga Badatse just in case Miles Turner and Sabonis out for longer. Didn't work out in that scenario, but those kind of like little gambles you could have a look at, making sure you're staying across the injury landscape. Who's going to be out next week, whether it's your team or someone else, that creates streaming opportunities. We've had a few injuries over in Charlotte. Okay, let's go grab Jalen McDaniels or someone like that who stands to benefit. And you can be quick to make those moves whilst the other teams are looking to stream players for specific needs. I still think now you can be looking at sort of best player available, and then, like you said, keeping a couple of ads for the end of the week on that Saturday or Sunday before your matchup starts on the Monday, so you can hit those early scheduled days without actually using an ad on the week of the playoffs. So that would be my advice if I was in the luxury position that you're in, Cal, but unfortunately I'm not. And in my dynasty league, I'll be scraping in as a low seed, trying to cause an upset. But we'll see how it goes. All right, let's move on to the preview. We're talking week 17, starting next week. For those who are either starting their playoffs or going into week 2, congratulations if you have made it through your first round. But let's go through the week in total. We've got 19 teams with 4 games next week, 10 teams with 3 games, and then one lowly team, the Toronto Raptors, who only have 2 games next week. So it's a bit of a rough one if you're relying on a couple of those Raptors. Some hot pickups recently have been players like Malachi Flynn, even Gary Trent Jr. recently has been pretty hot. So those players, you might be able to, again, if you're on your buy, you might be able to even drop a couple of players like that to grab someone else with more games in the teams with 4 games next week. But yeah, some of those, even Chris Boucher, we mentioned he's had a few monster games, but he also tends to follow them up with a couple of poor performances. So someone like that is expendable on a week where they have 2 games. Your players like Pascal Siakam, you're probably just going to have to tough it out. But even someone like Fred VanVleet, who's been injured, if you need to drop him, if you've got a few other injuries and he's currently injured right now, he's got that suspension for 1 game as well. So he might not even play next week, or he may even just play 1 game. So if it's do or die for you and you've got other injuries and you can't store him in an IR spot or an IL spot, he's someone who I think is also expendable. So any thoughts on the Raptors there, Cal?
Yeah, I've got OG Anunoby as well, which hurts because
Yep.
he's a big asset for steals, and he
Yep.
boosts a fair few other, definitely boosts a fair few other, efficient, no turnovers, gets your points, rebounds. So it is annoying. I will hold on to him though.
Okay, you're gonna hold OG.
I will.
I think he is sort of in the boat of Pascal Siakam. Those are probably the 2. Kyle Lowry is probably the 3rd one actually as well, but. It is tough, but that's where you got to try and maximize your streaming with other pickups and other ads to try and get by. The good news for you is if you do make it through that to the next week, they've got a 5-game week later on in the playoffs as well, and they're actually coming off a 5-game week this week as well. So you've had a lot of Raptors this week, but you won't have many next week, unfortunately. So let's break it down day by day now into the days that you can stream. We've got Monday, there's 9 games. Tuesday, 5, so low volume games. Wednesday, we've got a huge slate with 12 games played. Thursday, 6. Friday, 7. Saturday, 8. And Sunday, 7 as well. So really, the Monday and the Wednesday are probably your busiest days. Depending on your team, you might be able to stream on the Monday, but potentially unlikely. And on the Wednesday, pretty confident that you're not going to be able to find anyone to stream. So we're looking at those low-playing days to stream ahead. But in saying that, look ahead at your own team and look at what games you've got the most players playing. You might have 4 Raptors players on your roster, and you've got plenty of room to add players on the Wednesday. Just look at your team. Any thoughts from there, Cal?
Yeah, I think the one Wednesday is the one day you're going to have a full roster. So I'd be looking. Wednesday night will be the night to add players, and because you might have a bit of a you might be able to forecast how things are going, and then make some picks on the Thursday, Friday, and then maybe some last minute ones on the Saturday, Sunday. So that's the first thing. The Tuesday with the 5 games is kind of staring at me as well for a bit of an ad, just because there's no way your team should be full. It shouldn't be if there's only 5 games being played. So that's definitely a target for me early on, especially for someone like me with the bye week, where I will hopefully have a player on that Tuesday, and then maybe I'll drop him. It depends when his next game is, but that's something I'd be looking for, to have a player that I can add this week that won't affect my ads next week that is playing on that Tuesday.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great way to go about it, because then you've got someone locked and loaded that you wouldn't have had there otherwise, just sitting on the bench. So maximizing those games played. Let's go into the back-to-backs. So this is where you can look to add a player, get a couple of games out of them, then drop them straight away and move on to the next one. So you can potentially, with your 4 ads, get maybe 8 extra games out of that one roster spot, compared to just sitting on those players you've got. So I will highlight, however, unfortunately, on the start of the week, there's no teams that have a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back. So if you do have a spot to stream on the Monday, unfortunately, there's no team you can add that can get both of those first couple of games. So you're probably looking more so at either, if you can afford to, adding a player for the Monday before the week starts would be my advice, not using one up on that first day, though. From there, we're looking at Tuesday to Thursday. So we're skipping that Wednesday game where you're not going to be able to stream anyone, but adding a player that's going to play on Tuesday and then on Thursday as well, where there's 5 and 6 games respectively. So you should be able to roster them. There's 3 teams that have that pseudo back-to-back: Charlotte Hornets, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Orlando Magic. So if we want to run through some streaming targets from those teams, Cal, let's turn our attention to Charlotte first. Give us some names from the Charlotte Hornets on who you should be looking at to target for streaming value on those days.
The guy who I picked up on and off, and I feel like he is in the waiver wire here and there, would probably be Miles Bridges, would be the first guy. He actually started recently as well. It's the injuries, isn't it? It's the injury bug that's affecting that team. So he's actually, his value in general, he probably should be picked up just due to injuries and just because of that back-to-back that you mentioned. He is very valuable for this week.
Yeah, I think he's basically, I would say, almost a must roster as it is, but he is available in some leagues. I'm just looking it up now. Yeah, available. So he's rostered in 68% of Yahoo leagues. So if he is available, I would be going ahead and sort of preemptively adding him right now because I think he is someone that should be rostered with all those injuries that you said. He's going to put up points, threes, rebounds. He's going to get you a trickle of steals and assists there as well. So, and the percentages are pretty solid also. So he's someone who's not going to hurt you much anywhere, but give you some solid stats, especially with, Hayward being out, LaMelo being out, even someone like Malik Monk not being there. So that they are ravaged pretty heavily by injuries and he's going to be playing heavy minutes. So he's someone I would add regardless. I want to give a shout out to Cody Zeller, who is surprisingly only rostered in 18% of leagues. And on the season, he is the 165th ranked player, which is pretty solid, putting up really good field goal percentage, really good rebounding numbers with, some, solid blocks and steals, low turnovers. But yeah, your big value there is the rebounding and field goal percentage. So he's someone that could really help you in that category if you identify early that that's something that you're going to be competitive in your matchup. And I'll throw it over to you, Cal. One other guy we want to talk about is Jalen McDaniels, not Jaden, his brother, but Jalen McDaniels. What are your thoughts on him as a streamer?
I actually had someone else, so I'll take the reins. This is someone I might even pick over Cody Zeller right now because he had a great game.
Hit me.
Caleb Martin.
Okay.
Monk's out, right? Monk's out. Gordon Hayward's out. Ball's out. Caleb Martin played 35 minutes in the last game and put up 17, 10, 5. Shooting the ball pretty well, 3 threes as well.
Yep.
He should maintain minutes. He's the twin that does get more minutes than is it Cody? Cody usually isn't. Yeah. So Caleb, if he puts up 30 minutes a game, he played well in that previous game. So a bit speculative. You obviously keep your eye on the injuries there. But if he's got a green light for minutes, he's definitely worth a flyer.
Yeah, I think this team just in general, there's a lot of targets. Terry Rozier recently left the game with knee tendonitis, so there's more minutes even opening up there. So great call. I think he's an excellent sort of streamer. And yes, make sure it's Caleb Martin, not Cody Martin, because he's the one getting the minutes.
So Jalen McDaniels, you're talking about him.
Yes. So Jalen McDaniels, again, another brother in the NBA. Jalen is probably
played 40 minutes last game.
Yeah, he's putting up big minutes. He's a defensive stats streamer mostly, but also can give you a few threes. He has put up some points in the last few games, 21, 19, and 16, all in his last 4 games. I wouldn't be expecting that to be the norm, but he could definitely give you steals. He can definitely give you blocks and potentially some solid rebounds and threes. So, again, he's probably another player that I would almost be speculating if those are the stats you need, add him right away because he could have, good value moving forward whilst this team is ravaged with injuries. But only rostered in 41% of leagues. So he is out there on waiver wires. So have a look to see if he's there. And the last little sort of mention, again, if Rozier is out, Brad Wanamaker could be a good assist streamers. If all those other names are taken, probably less value than those other guys, but he can give you some value in assists just because he'll have to get minutes because they're all injured. Let's go on to New Orleans. Maybe not quite as many options in New Orleans compared to Charlotte, but who's some names that we could think about there, Cal?
Well, someone I picked up about a week ago was James Johnson, and I've been pretty happy with what he's been doing. He doesn't really hurt you too much anyway, and he's got on the defensive end. His steals have been pretty impressive, and his blocks have actually been pretty impressive as well. So, and he does have the odd 6 assist game here and there. So he's been an asset. He's been getting minutes. The last game he dropped off a little bit, so I'll keep my eye on him.
Yeah.
But he's definitely in this scenario. He is a pretty good fit with Zion too. So maybe it is a bit of a consistent thing for the rest of the season, and for that back-to-back, that Tuesday, Thursday is what we're looking for. Could be a good asset there.
Yeah, definitely a blocks and steals streamer. He can get you. He's had games where he's had 4 blocks and 2 steals, or 3 blocks and 1 steal, etc. So, like you said, tailed off the last game, but it was because of a sore right wrist. So before that, he was getting minutes of 33, 32, 27, 26, 33. So high minutes before that. It's only a sore right wrist. So hopefully he will be, good to go. He might only miss a game or 2, but come next week when the playoffs, this week playoffs start, hopefully he should be okay. But just monitor that and make sure that he is sort of 100% ready to go. So I like that one for some blocks and steals. I will mention the rookie, Kira Lewis Jr., as a good assists and steals streamer. They seem to be, again, injuries is a big thing over there in New Orleans. Lonzo's been in and out of the lineup. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been in and out of the lineup. I don't think they want to play Eric Bledsoe huge minutes. So Kira Lewis might find himself with some big minutes.
Yeah, Josh Hart is also injured as well.
Josh Hart is injured, yep. So the minutes, maybe not quite as much as James Johnson, but I don't think he needs as many minutes to get those stats. He's a good per minute producer. Just be aware of the field goal percentage, as well as a couple of other deficiencies. And he's actually not too bad at turning the ball over, so that's not something to worry about. But yeah, should be a good assist and steal streamer. And only rostered in 2% of leagues, so he is available in a lot of leagues. So he's someone that you should be able to find and pick up for that Tuesday, Thursday, back-to-back. Anyone else you want to mention, Cal?
I guess we could touch on Eric Bledsoe. Apparently, people have dropped him because he has been pretty bad this season. But with these injuries, he probably should perform. He's about 70% owned. So
which is probably too many, really. Like, he's not that good. But if he is available, he can't hurt for an assist stream, or you can get some points here and there with all these injuries.
Yeah, you'd have to think I understand Zion's running a bit of point now, but he can still get steals. He could be a guy you could get for steals. He should get minutes now that team is just so injured.
Yeah. So if he's available, if he is available, I prefer him over Kira Lewis just because he'll get more minutes. But obviously, rostered in 74% of leagues, might not be available in your league, but potentially if he's there. Let's go into that last team with the Tuesday, Thursday back-to-back, the Orlando Magic. Few guys to look at here. Potentially a couple of guys that you should be rostering anyway. Let's start with Mo Bamba. What are your thoughts on Mo Bamba at the moment, Cal?
I said a few weeks ago to keep your eye on him when the trade happened, and he's been pretty good fantasy-wise. We knew he'd be a threes and blocks guy, and he has been performing. I still hate his game. I hate watching him, but from a fantasy point of view, he definitely is worth that. He probably should be added really by anyone now. He's only 24% owned, which is a surprise because look, he had a 21-point game. He gets the 3 blocks. He had a 5 3-point game as well recently.
Yeah, he's been shooting the 3 crazy recently.
He's one of those guys, if he gets 20 minutes, which he has been getting, he'll put up stats similar to like a Boucher kind of guy. Probably doesn't affect winning much, but he's great for fantasy.
He's and some minutes have opened up recently with Birch being bought out, and now they're sort of left with just him and Wendell Carter Jr. as the only centers on that roster. And even in, low 20s in minutes, Bamba can be someone who can give you a lot of stats. He has currently got a left hip contusion, and he's questionable for Wednesday's game. So keep an eye on that. Hopefully he is. So for that reason, I wouldn't be picking him up right now if he is available. But if you do see that he is healthy and he plays those sort of 18 to 24 minutes a night, then he is someone that you could definitely consider. If you need blocks, if you need some out of position threes potentially, although I think that may dry up a little bit. The blocks are there. The rebounds are probably there. But I'm not 100% sold on that volume of threes. I don't see him getting sort of 4 or 5 threes a night. He might get you 1 or 2. So for that reason, I think there's better options elsewhere. But definitely someone you can consider for the blocks. Give us another Orlando name, Cal.
I actually like RJ Hampton potentially for steals and maybe a bit of points. And his field goal has actually been pretty good as well. So he was one of the guys they acquired in the trade. And right now, the point guard role is being, I guess, traded between RJ Hampton and Michael Carter-Williams and Cole Anthony,
Yep.
all of which probably are addable. Let's face it, Cole Anthony is more the assists, Carter-Williams is the steals, RJ Hampton is probably a bit of steals, a bit more points than Carter-Williams.
Yep.
So it's really who you think who you're going to spin the dice on out of those three.
Yeah, I think for me the highest value of those three is Cole Anthony. So he would be my first preference. Rostered in 29% of leagues, so he's available in a lot of leagues. I think, like you said, RJ Hampton's my next guy. And then really only for steals is Michael Carter-Williams. I think his minutes are trending down now that Anthony's back and healthy. His minutes were high when he was injured, but I think they're going to start to trend down. Anthony's minutes are going to start to come up. Just be aware of the percentages with Cole Anthony. They can be pretty rough. Both field goal and free throws are not ideal. Free throws are not too bad, but still enough to hurt you slightly. So keep that in mind. But I like RJ Hampton. He will continue to see more minutes as the season progresses. I'll touch on a couple of other obvious ones. Terrence Ross, points, threes, and one of the rare, and this is a hard thing to do, one of the rare guys who can influence your free throw percentage as well. We've talked about percentages before being hard to stream. So if you identify that free throws are close in your matchup, and that can be easy to identify in your matchup, he is someone who's taking over 4 attempts a game, solid percentages, and is, on an Orlando team that doesn't have many other players shooting the ball. He's someone that could actually make a fairly decent dent in improving your free throw percentage. So pretty unique streaming option there for free throw percentage.
Yeah, that man did go off for 50 points a few seasons ago. And with the roster they have now, you can't rule that out for him again. So he could be a fantasy, definitely could help in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Roster in 67% of the league, so more than those other guys we're talking about. But, for some of you shallower leagues, he should still be available, roster under 70%. So one to keep an eye on. All right, let's move on to the next back-to-back. So the next one that we're going to touch on is the Thursday-Friday. There's 2 teams here. One we've already mentioned in the Charlotte Hornets. So if you were really strategic here, you could, but see how you go with your ads. You might not need to with a week like this where there are a lot of days you can stream. But on a team like the Charlotte Hornets, you could add someone on the Tuesday and get them playing Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 3 games in 4 nights for the single ad. So that would be something that if you find a good player for the Charlotte Hornets, you could do that and get some good value, and then add like crazy on the weekend when things are wrapping up. So we've talked about the Charlotte guys. Let's talk about Boston. There's not many really players that I can think of. Do you have a few guys to stream from Boston?
It's really, I guess, Thompson is usually on most waiver wires.
Yeah.
He's not going to scream at you, but he'll get you rebounds and he might get you some defensive stats.
Yeah.
Points obviously aren't there. Threes aren't there. His free throw percent could hurt you as well. So it could be a bit of a double-edged sword. But if you're desperate and maybe, I don't know, if you need rebounds or you need blocks in the late, you could pick him up.
Yeah, I think he's really it, really. I mean, Evan Fournier, if he's available, sure, get some points in threes, but for most leagues, he won't be available. And yeah, I can't think Peyton Pritchard, I think, is too inconsistent to rely on. I'd rather some other guys like, the Cole Anthonys or even the Brad Wanamakers and things like that. And even over Thompson, I'd prefer someone like Cody Zeller. But if he's snatched up before you get there, Thompson will give you, 6 or 7 rebounds a night and maybe some solid field goal percentage. So if those are really important stats for you, he can do that. So not much more else to talk about Boston there. Let's move on to the next back-to-back. And it is Friday, Saturday, 2 teams again, Denver and Houston. Give me some. Oh, let's talk about Denver first. And there's a few extra potential ads here with the injury to Jamal Murray. Tell me, what are your thoughts, Cal? I said my thoughts on Twitter the other day, but I want to hear what your thoughts are first.
I think Monte Morris is probably going to be the guy who gets the most minutes. Yep. And on top of that, Will Barton will also be boosted because Will Barton can play he's a bit of a crafty guy. He can play the pick and roll. So whoever fits that mold, I think will work well with Jokic. Monte Morris has always been a bit of a cutter slasher, which works well with Morris. So with the boosted minutes, his points should go up. I think everything should be lifted a fair bit. So those would be the two guys that kind of yell at me as the best. And I will mention as well that Monte Morris, he is the second most added player today.
Yes.
So people are kind of catching on to it. He's obviously, you're spinning the dice a bit there. It's not proven, but everyone's assuming, and it could definitely pay off.
I tweeted out that I don't think from the injury that anyone is now going from not rosterable player to a must-add player. I don't think Monty Morris is going to be that. I feel like he's a bit of that kind of player that is like okay in everything, but not good and like great in any one thing. So for that reason, I don't love it. He's going to be a decent assist streamer kind of, and he'll get threes as well. Probably his two biggest contributor, and free throw percentage will be solid. But outside of that, doesn't contribute too much. So I would be rushing to add him as soon as you can. I would focus on streaming more than just adding him and locking him away. I also like Facu Campazzo as a good assist and steals streamer. He's obviously going to be another beneficiary. And it's probably a better streaming target for your specific stats. Now, obviously, he's not going to get you rebounds or blocks or score very highly, but he can give you good assists, give you good steals, and every now and again he can throw in some decent threes as well. So I do really like him as a streaming target, probably more so over Monty Morris, because I know where I'm going to get the value from Facu. Monty Morris is a bit more, across the board, so to speak. Yeah, but Will Button's a good shout. I think he gets a boost, but probably owned in most leagues.
Yeah, he's at 61% right now. 61. So yeah. I think he would be a must-add now. So if there's anyone out there, I think get him.
Yeah. So I would agree. I think you should be owning Will Barton above everyone else. So if he is available, he would be an ad straight away. The other two, I think you can wait on and stream as needed. And if someone scoops him up, I don't think it's the biggest loss in the world. I don't think they're going to sort of set the world on fire, so to speak. Let's talk about Houston. There's probably a couple guys here that I really like. Who do you think are options from Houston?
I'll say Kelly Olynyk is 68% owned, and he is a killer right now on fantasy. Yep. So he should be picked up.
Add him.
They could rest him though. That's the only downside. I feel like that's a bit of a gamble with Houston right now. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. They're tanking incredibly. So spin the dice a bit, but he's my first shout out. Otherwise,
must add. I think he's a must roster player.
Yep, I do agree.
Yep.
Otherwise, we have touched on him before, but Jayshawn Tate.
Yep.
I don't mind his game. He's been getting steals recently, so yes. he could up you in the steals, and his field goals are right. You can get rebounds as well, and he's got the odd 5 assist game here and there. So overall, it's okay. But I'd be streaming him for steals if you needed that.
I think he's not a borderline must roster. I think he's a must roster player. But like you said, steals is his big thing. He's had a few games with 3 or 4 steals. He gets some blocks here and there. He's had a few sort of couple block games, 3 block games, which sort of can be handy. And then solid field goal percentage, solid rebound, so not hurting you there. So is a good streaming guy without actually hurting you too much in too many areas as well. So. But by no means is a must roster player. But in 55% of leagues, he should be available. And I think the other guy we touched on previously is who was it? KJ Martin Jr.
KJ Martin?
KJ Martin, who's probably only a blocks streamer, really. And probably below the pecking order compared to someone like a Mo Bamba or someone like that. But someone who can get you a block or 2 a game if you really need that stat. Let's move on to the last back-to-back, and this is the important end of the week, Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. There are 2 teams that have these games, and that's the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. So to finish off your week, if you're really close in those matchups, you're keeping an eye on these players to make sure you get the most amount of value possible. Let's start with the Pacers. Who have you got for some streaming targets for Indiana?
I think the heart and soul of that team and TJ McConnell should definitely have a shout out. He's 58% owned. Yeah, he has been killing it. Steals and assists. He had a 15 assist game recently.
Yeah.
He has been so good. I think he actually leads the league in total steals as well. So I'm surprised that 58% owned is there because he's a good player right now, and he's been getting minutes. He's been proving himself. He doesn't help at all in threes. Is probably one of the big downfalls for him, and he can turn over the ball sometimes. So he might have the odd game where he gets 5 turnovers. So it can hurt you in those 2 categories. But otherwise, he's quite efficient. He knows where his spot is on the floor. He can shoot 60% pretty easily. He has been shooting very, very well over the past couple of weeks in this run. So he'd be a must add in my opinion.
Yeah, if you need it, like he is the quintessential assists and steals streamer, elite in those categories, but doesn't do much else. So if those are things that you need, if you can identify early, that's going to be something, the difference between your matchup and the next one, I would add it straight away because he's someone that can really turn the tide in those categories. You can't get a better assist and steal streamer than TJ McConnell, in my opinion. And that's why he's owned a bit more but he doesn't really provide value outside of that. But 55%, I think it should be higher than that. Of course, if you don't need those stats, he's useless to you. So don't bother if you don't need assists and steals. But if you do, he's someone who's definitely worth rostering. I'll give another shout out to my boy Goga Badatse. He had I think I mentioned last time as a block streamer, I think 7 or 8 blocks this week. I think his opportunity is drying up a little bit with some of those injured players returning, but just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on what they're doing over there. And if there is ever an injury to Sabonis or Miles Turner, even in limited minutes, he can give you multiple blocks. And I prefer him as a block streamer to someone like KJ Martin, because I think he's just got higher potential in limited minutes. And I'll also give a shout out to Justin Holiday and Jeremy Lamb as sort of threes and steals streamers with a couple of injuries. I think Doug McDermott went down with a bit of an injury recently, so they should see a boost to their minutes, and that's all they do is shoot threes and get steals. So they should be good to give you value in those categories there. Anyone else you wanted to add in there?
Not really. I have picked up Justin Holiday.
Yep.
I think 3 times this season. He's on my team right now again. So he's worth having for this. I get him for the steals and I guess the threes as well. He does help you.
Yeah, he can be streaky there, but if you get him on the right run, he can rack up a few in the single game. Last team we'll talk about today, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think we spoke about these guys on our last podcast, but we'll go through them again real quick. Who have you got as streamers there for Milwaukee?
Jeff Teague surprisingly come out of nowhere and is now playing okay. Does that hurt you as a Celtic fan?
Not really, because I know that he's not that good. So, it is whatever. I'd rather Peyton Pritchard.
Fair enough. He could be worth an add if you need assists. That's probably the only reason I'd add him. And it could be a bit desperate at that as well.
Yeah, I think, obviously your TJ McConnells, your Facu Campazzo, Cole Anthony, those kind of guys I would have ahead. But when you get down to this stage on the last day, if you're desperate for assists, Jeff Teague could be your savior. As scary as that sounds to say. I'll shout out Bryn Forbes. If you really need some threes, if that's the category that's really close, he could potentially give you a couple a game. And Bobby Portis, who's our favorite guy who beats up on teams when they're blowing them out and just loves a bit of garbage time. So he could potentially give you some points and rebounds and good field goal percentage. If the game's not close and he gets a good run of minutes. So I will mention those.
Bobby Portis is pretty much Jordan Clarkson in a power forward's body because for some reason he thinks he's got the biggest green light. If you ever, even when he was back at the Knicks, and even before that, I think it was the Bulls. Whenever that man's on the court, he is letting it go.
Oh, he loves to shoot it. Loves to punch on with his teammates.
Oh yeah.
Who was it? Mirotic. He broke his face or something one year.
Yeah, that did happen in training. In training.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, loves a shot. Never liked a shot he didn't like to take. So if they get junk time and he gets the minutes, he's gonna let it fly. So
he's been playing really well recently too. He's had 4 double-doubles in a row.
Yeah. So he puts it up in limited minutes. So he is someone, but if the minutes aren't there, you can see it go, but he is, owned in 54% of leagues. So he is available as someone to add if you need those points, rebounds, and field goal percentage. Alrighty, that might do it for us today, Cal. Any last bits of advice for those heading into the playoffs or currently in the playoffs right now for the fantasy teams out there?
Just don't underestimate those games played. Just look into your roster, and when you know you can pick someone up, just swipe them. Just go.
Yep. My advice would be don't be afraid to be bold and go early with those streams. Stream aggressively. Identify the stats early and then target those key areas, and you'll get through. It's week to week. It's survival mode right now. Don't worry about rest of season value. I've had a couple people asking about drops and things like that. If you've got someone like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who we don't know when's going to come back, you might need to drop a player like that to just get as much value as you can. They are expendable at this point of the year, as sad as it is. But good luck, everyone. Wish you all the best in your fantasy playoffs, and hopefully we'll be seeing you next week where we can talk about the next week of the fantasy playoffs, which is potentially the championship week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the like button, hit that bell so you get notified for our videos, and follow us over on Twitter @BallBoysNBA. And we'll catch you next time.